just want to know what time those look.
9:25, 9:26.
Alright.
Okay. Hey guys, so this week we're going to be talking about... Yep, I sure should.
Today we're...
So tonight we're going to be talking about our ghost hunts on the 25th and the 26th, which were Friday and Saturday of September. So we're rounding out one of the busiest months we had at the hotel in recent memory in terms of frequency of ghost hunts. We had about 2 every weekend.
We had a really good night on September 25th. We had a good group. People were very friendly, they were very into it, and they were very interactive from the very beginning. From the moment we stepped into the concert hall, as we're sitting there talking on the balcony in front of the group, suddenly we hear a single piano note play over on the stage. And I've heard that particular piano go off probably 3 times, and I think it's the only piano I've ever heard go off in the concert hall. So I immediately go down there and try to recreate it and figure out from the group's perspective which key was hit, and we did reach the conclusion that one of the piano notes did go off, so that was pretty neat.
So on Friday night, the 25th, Connor and I took a group up to the balcony.
I had the strongest flashlight interaction with a spirit that I think I've ever had.
They didn't come on in the first minute that we set them down or the first 5 minutes. It came on like 20 or 30 minutes later.
I had 3 separate flashlights set up in different areas of the balcony, and they were turning on and off on command, on time. I think I counted 20, 25 control questions. I would sit there and I would say, okay, turn the silver one on. Great, now turn it off. Okay, now turn it back on the count of 5. Great, now turn it back off. Now try the blue one. Okay, now the red one, now the blue one again. And it just went on and on. It was impressive.
So that's why it got kind of special to me, because I'm not usually impressed with the flashlight, but in that moment I was.
After about 20 or 25 questions, we started to try to interact with the spirit and figure out who it was. As soon as we started asking more personal questions, they just seemed to back off and they didn't want to talk anymore. And the flashlights started going a little bit haywire, and we totally lost contact with whoever that was. But it was really neat in the beginning there. So I'm not sure who that was, but they did a really good job.
So during the investigation on that same night, Connor and I were still in the balcony, and we conducted a burst session, which is kind of like an EVP session, but kind of quicker and more controlled.
I'll typically run one audio recorder throughout the night. I've been starting doing that more often. And then I have a recorder that I use only for burst sessions. Now, this was my first piece of paranormal equipment. I've probably had it for 10 years and been using it. And honestly, I tend to get pretty good results with it.
So we asked our group to, each ask a question. Let's go around the circle, try to find out what the spirit wants to talk about. And there was only one woman who didn't really speak up. She didn't want to ask a question, and I guess she was kind of shy. And so toward the end of the burst session, a light came on in the stairway. But I didn't want to contaminate the burst session or anything, so I waited until Connor clicked off the recorder. And right away I said, "Did y'all see that light come on?" And then that same woman said, "Yeah, I was about to say I saw that light come on." So then we listened back to our burst session.
And we caught this bizarre voice.
Right away, that woman who was sitting over there and had mentioned the light coming on, she said, "Oh, I think that was me. I think I was talking about the light." But I remembered she spoke after me and I spoke after the recorder came off. And could it have been her just saying something else? Maybe. But the fact that she was kind of the shy one in the group, I kind of think she wouldn't just talk to the group without being, asked anything first.
Brings in the importance of tagging, but I can't tell what she's saying either. So maybe you guys can give it a listen and we can try to see what's being said there.
John.
Like Connor, just Connor.
Okay, thank you.
Like Connor, just Connor. Like Connor, just Connor.
Michelle and I were investigating down in Lucy's room. We had the group in there.
And right away by the door, I was talking about, I think my dog that had passed away. And Karl got this really intense feeling coming toward the door.
But what was really kind of strange about it was the severity that it hit me at one point. And when Michelle was sitting near the door to Lucy's room, for me it felt like someone just came and stuck their head right through that door itself.
And I'm freaking out because Karl doesn't do that. And I'm telling the group, this doesn't happen. Karl doesn't do this.
And it's one of the weird parts of our job because we're always concerned about experiencing things ourselves, because we're always a little bit worried that maybe the guests will start thinking that we're just trying to give them a good experience, which I think is a very fair response from them. Like, obviously we're the tour guides, we're leading this thing, we want everyone to have an experience. They don't know us at the end of the day, that's fine. But what's curious though is when it does happen, we're gonna be honest about what's happening too. And Michelle and I were both getting some very strange feelings.
And then like really quick after, I just got really nauseated. I mean, it came on so fast and I felt so sick, and that's never happened to me before on a ghost hunt. And so I thought it was really strange, and I talked about it just to see if anyone else was feeling it, and it quickly went away. And so I thought, maybe did I just eat something weird? I don't know.
Later on, in fact, I was feeling the sensation come back once again. But Michelle was on a tangent, she was chatting, I didn't want to interrupt her.
I was talking about what had happened with Connor and myself in the balcony just a few minutes later, and it started coming back. And I stopped myself, I said, I'm sorry guys, I'm just getting really sick again.
And I informed her that I'd been feeling that same feeling come back again.
And so it was kind of weird because at the exact same time, Karl and I felt it come back.
So it was definitely a very strange presence sort of in Lucy's room that evening in a way that we haven't felt in a couple of months.
Another thing happened up on the balcony, and of course it always happens right behind my back, literally, because I was sitting there talking to the group and the main concert hall was behind me, when suddenly I do hear this faint buzzing noise, and I turn around and the group says that circular thing just went off. What they were talking about was the REM Pod. The REM Pod went off on the stage, sitting there by itself. Guess how many times I've seen a REM Pod go off in the Stanley Hotel? 0. Can you flash a number 0 across the screen when I say that? I'll do it again. How many times have I seen a REM Pod go off? Yeah, 0. So it was insane. I have no idea how that was set off. We've been having this continuing sort of a theme with motion detectors going off on the stage. I have a motion detector that's actually used for dog training that makes a really loud noise if something touches it. And I set a little toy football helmet on top of it just as a potential trigger object. And it would have been 3 weekends ago that went off on the stage by itself. And now the REM Pod goes off. So I was really very impressed that happened. That was really pretty cool.
The following night though, Saturday the 26th, Connor's group was doing a burst session down in Lucy's room. One of the guests asked the spirits if they had the ability to smell.
If you're a spirit, can you smell things?
And the spirit responded very clearly as an EVP that said no. And they were obviously on top of the tagging that night very well. No one points it out in the moment. They hear it later and can't explain it, which kind of asks a lot of interesting questions after that when it comes to that ability of the physical senses, if spirits are physical, how they interact with our world. Lots of questions that come up with that.
On September 26th, I had one of my good friends along for the investigation. His name is Alex.
I always love investigating with Alex on the ghost hunts. He's on Connor's team out of Denver.
He works with Front Range Paranormal Investigations, which is one of the TAPS family teams out here in Colorado. It's the only TAPS family team out here in Colorado that I co-manage.
And once in a while, he'll come up to the Stanley as sort of our backup in case we ever really need him.
Alex and I have investigated together many hours over the last several years. And I like to think that he and I have a bit of a connection.
When he and Connor get together, they're just like ghost magnets. They've got some of the craziest stories about the nights they're investigating together. And I think some people's energy just clicks.
We tend to pick up on certain feelings, and honestly, I don't want to jinx it, but cool stuff can happen when Alex and I are hanging out with each other.
So after the investigation on Saturday night, we decided to, as a group, just go back down to Lucy's room and see if we could get anything to happen off the clock, just relaxed.
We're all sitting around a little bit. Michelle's getting this weird vibe where she just gets drained.
Right away, I just felt so drained.
But then very quickly, as it turns out, Alex and Connor both have their attention drawn towards a very specific part of the room.
We're vibing that there was somebody hanging out in the corner of Lucy's room.
They run a kind of a cool little experiment.
They decided, all right, let's number the chairs and at the same time say which one we think it's sitting in.
And then they both at the exact same time said the number of the chair that they felt the presence in. And what do you know?
And we both pointed out the same chair without knowing, that the other one was thinking about it. And so there's definitely some credibility there. It was pretty interesting. On the night of September 26th, Alex and I were together in the women's bathroom. I recognize how strange this sounds now. We took the group into the women's restroom where we get some activity from Lucy every now and then. And we decided to do a different kind of burst session where basically I leave my recorder running for 3 minutes and we do a few things in sequence. And I actually got this idea from Grant Wilson. And basically what Grant said to do is you begin the burst session for the first minute of your recording. You just walk into the room. You don't announce yourself, you're silent, you just walk into the room. In theory, if there's a spirit there who's a little more shy or doesn't want to respond to questions, it's almost like you interrupt them in a sense. And then for the next minute, you just start talking amongst yourselves in the group in nice, loud, clear voices, thinking that maybe the spirit might want to join into your conversation. And then for the very last minute of that 3-minute burst session, what we do is we ask direct questions of the spirit. And so during this first minute, when I walk in with the group into the women's restroom, the very first thing that I said after we were all in there is I said, do you guys ever think that you would spend a Saturday night with a bunch of strangers in a women's restroom, just as a little joke? And you hear this voice come across say, stop. And it is loud and clear. And I was very keen on tagging that night. And I have no idea who said stop. We didn't hear that voice until afterwards, and it's really a pretty good EVP. So either they were annoyed with me or they were talking to somebody else, I'm not sure, but somebody told us to stop.
You guys ever think you'd spend a Saturday night just sitting in the bathroom? Bunch of strangers.
In the dark?
Yeah.
Let's hear what about.
Okay.
Stop. Stop. Stop.
All right, guys, that's all we have for this week, but thank you for watching. We're heading into October. It's always a crazy month, so stay tuned, and we'll keep posting our vlogs to show you what else we get.
You guys ever feel like you're just losing your head? Okay, is there somebody behind me? One of these things is not like the other. Pretty much the same skin tone though, eh? What am I talking about here? Hey, I probably look better now. What do you guys think? You never know when that full-bodied apparition is gonna come through. Could be tonight. And I'm sitting here trying to read my notes, and you get this feeling that somebody's reading over your shoulder. We don't hang out with Connor very much.
Connor,
It's all right.
Michelle.
I got a couple friends. They're over here. Well, I want to know what Karl uses these for the rest of the year.
He
just
cuddles with them.
cuddles with them. He puts his hats on.
He puts them in his bed, puts lipstick on one of them.
Oh.
Dark.
Wow, wow, wow.
I can feel it.
All right, cool.